Welcome back to the Matchbook Betting Podcast, or NFL edition, as ever, with three of the brightest and best in the game. Top right of your screen, if you watch us now live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, is Mr. Drew Dinsick. Returning, Mr. Rob Pizolla at the bottom right of your screen, and Germany's finest, Mr. Fabian Sommer. Rob, you're off the hook for last week. 3 out of 6, 50% knock last week. Drew, let's start. Saints +5, terrific look. Miami +4.5. Falcons first half. I got to take credit for one of these wins at some stage. Sumi, you kind of left the stone as small, mate, but you've had plenty of winners. But Drew, first to you, mate. What kind of week was it for you? Week 9.
It was fantastic. It was a good week all around. And the Sunday nighter was just the cherry on top. After so many weeks of slandering Tom Brady, he finally truly laid an egg. And it was in a game that I was absolutely overweight on the Saints in every way. And obviously, bought low on their futures for the NFC. That's looking solid now. I had a ticket on over 10.5 interceptions for Tom Brady for the season. That was probably my biggest coming into the season. That was my biggest prop play. And after 4 interceptions through the first couple of weeks, he was playing spotless football. And I was like, man, is he not going to get to 11? So seeing him throw 3 picks was just, picture perfect. I'm going to try not to overreact too much. I think the market is overreacting a little to the Saints. But they have just a great schedule down the home stretch here. One more game against a meaningful opponent in Kansas City Chiefs Week 15. So I think you're talking about 13-3 here for the Saints, and likely the path goes through them for the NFC, which is pretty exciting.
I wanted to thank you for that second half play, 2 on the under 22.5. That was never in doubt. That was never in doubt. Beautiful, beautiful scenes all around. Rob Pizolla, like I said, we missed you last week, mate. I didn't get a chance to see your Periscope on Sunday afternoon, but how was week 9 for you?
It wasn't a great week, but it got a lot better. I was actually messaging Suma at the end of the early games last week. I'm like, oh man, this is looking really, really bad. And it was. I had a horrible early slate, but then did well at the 4 o'clock games, had a pretty substantial play on Miami as well. And then Sunday Night Football, I was with you, Drew, as well on the Saints, which was a pretty large play. So I ended up pretty much juicing out last week. I took a small loss, but the way things were looking at one point on Sunday, I was looking at I
think we lost. And he's back, and he's on. We lost you for a second, Rob. We'll come back to the second. Suma, Matchbook Insights. You're 7-2 on the season. Whatever the hell you put up there wins, but I think you had a tough enough weekend, week 9.
Oh yeah, I survived basically. I think after the early slate on Sunday it was 1-4, and then I won with the Vegas over and the Saints on Sunday night, and 3-4. I lost 1.5 units, and just survived the last week.
Just about survived. Sometimes that's okay. We're into week 10, double digits. Sometimes you just have to survive. Coming up in today's show, we are talking about the Seahawks and Rams, the Bills and Cardinals, Bengals, Steelers, Bucs, Panthers, any other bets. And as ever, best bets. Just a bit of housekeeping I want to bring to people's attention, first of all. I know we were getting a couple of complaints about the Periscope link in last week. Sometimes that's not actually on our end. Sometimes Twitter and Periscope it takes a while to upload fully after recording. So you can find us alternatively. If you want to watch our beautiful faces, you can watch us on YouTube. Search for Team Matchbook there. All of the latest betting content is on Team Matchbook at YouTube. Right, gentlemen, let's jump in. First of all, we're going to start with the Seahawks against the Rams. Current betting at Matchbook at the time of recording. So you can see there, Seattle Seahawks at 2.09. The Los Angeles Rams at 1.86. The Rams laying 1.5. Good odds against their 2.01. 55 is the total. Drew Dinsick, start with you first. I'll give you credit. You said to us last week, beware of Seattle. Tough spot, tough situation going to Buffalo. You were right. You didn't really talk us out of it. We still backed it, of course. We should have sensed where you were coming from. We were too bullish on Seattle. They're underdogs this week, though. Is there a bit of value on Russell Wilson and Seahawks this week?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't want to say it on the scope last week, but I was obviously I never cheer against you guys because I love you guys. But I was hopeful that Seattle wasn't going to look great in that spot so that we could get value on them this week. I love them in this spot. I love Seattle and the way they match up against the Rams. The Rams defense, if you're doing any math modeling, if you're doing any statistical analysis, your model is probably telling you this Rams defense is elite. They maybe even like the best in the league, right? But if you look kind of a little bit deeper at who their opponents are, who they've played, specifically the quarterbacks they've faced, they really have yet to be tested. And this is an enormous step up in competition as far as quarterback play go and wide receiver play. This is an absolutely elite unit in every way. Don't be fooled by the sloppy play that you saw last week from Russell Wilson. He is absolutely, putting up, a spectacular season from a passing standpoint, both efficiency and completion percentage over expectation. He's on pace for 56 touchdowns, for crying out loud. And he's got a bevy of weapons to choose from. So this is a great matchup for him against a Seattle defense that not only are they a little suspect because they're a stars and scrubs unit, they have a lot of replacement level players on the field for every single snap. And honestly, they've had some attrition in the couple weeks leading into their bye. They lost a couple of players for the season, guys who would be maybe depth players on other teams, and now they're going to have to backfill there. And if you can put two hats on Aaron Donald and take away his ability to truly disrupt the passing game, which I think the Seattle offensive line is capable of, the way they've shown their play so far this season, I think you're going to give Russell Wilson time. I think he's going to be able to put up points. And then it's entirely on the shoulder of Jared Goff to attack a Seattle defense that we know is susceptible. You can pass on this defense. Josh Allen proved it in spades last week. But the problem is, what Jared Goff is doing, his short average depth of target, his dink and dunk style, that's not exactly how you really want to attack this team. And we have yet to see Jared Goff truly throw accurate passes downfield this season. I'm not sure he can really do it, to be honest. And really, he doesn't really have the weapons that can create separation downfield anyway. So honestly, the fact that this sets up so well where the easiest way to attack Seattle, the Rams can't really do it. I think that's going to be a problem because they're going to be behind on the scoreboard here early and often in this one. And I think Seattle on the money line is the play.
Rob Pizolla, Drew touched on it there. The 5 games they've won, the Rams, they've been the Cowboys, Eagles, Giants, Washington football team, and the Bears. That's got to be an inflated record for anyone right now. That's not a great look. Rob, what are you thinking with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Seahawks are the better of these two teams. The Seahawks-Bills matchup last week, that doesn't really give us a bunch of new information. Like, we know Seattle's defense is bad, right? That's something we've known. And I think the Bills, especially Brian Daboll, their offensive coordinator, they schemed a great game against Seattle. I mean, they just said, the Seahawks stopped the run, so why are we going to run the ball? We're just going to throw on them nonstop, and that worked. And that worked because Josh Allen played a really good game, but Josh Allen has largely been better than Jared Goff for the majority of the year. I mean, if you look at quarterbacks in the NFL this year, there's 37 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks this season. Jared Goff ranks 25th out of those 37 in EPA per play. They've scored 24 points or less in 5 of their 8 games. And 24 points, maybe a few years ago, that was a decent scoring amount, but it's not in the NFL anymore, right? Teams are averaging closer to 25 and a half this season. So they're really not scoring at the rate that you would expect an offense with the weapons that they have to score. Now, I'm not saying that the Seahawks defense is going to shut down the Rams offense. That's probably not going to happen. But this is a defense that should get better going forwards, right? They returned Jamal Adams last week, who didn't have a good game. Carlos Dunlap, who they traded for on the offensive line. Like, they're adding talent to the defense as the year goes on. And that's not going to make them a plus unit, but it's going to make them better going forwards. And then on the other side of the things, like, we know Seattle's going to score. They scored 31 points or more in 7 of their 8 games this year. Their lowest point totals here was 27 in that Sunday Night Football game against Minnesota. And it might not be as easy as Russell Wilson versus Jared Goff, but to me it kind of is. Like, at the end of the day, if you're giving me a essentially what is amounting to close to a coin flip with one of the best quarterbacks in the league versus a below average quarterback, which has an overrated defense, in my opinion, for a lot of reasons Drew touched on, I'm going to take Russell Wilson. And I think this is a great bounce back spot. And I love playing good teams in bounce back spots where people are just like, they think Seattle's not a contender anymore because of last week. And I couldn't disagree more. So I like the Seahawks here. I think there's some value with them this week.
Yeah, and one must wonder if Seattle had gone to Buffalo, got the win, what would this price have been? They're surely going to be favourites. I think you touched on a pretty good point there regards the Seahawks defense, and they almost remind me of the Chiefs defense around this time last year, where you know they're bad, but they only just have to be so good to actually get a couple of wins. Suma, what are you thinking with this one? Are you on the Seahawks, Suma, or are you on the Rams?
I lean Seattle as well. I only have one counterpoint, and that's McVay has really shredded the defense in the past, and I think they were like 2 single plays away from sweeping the Seahawks since 2017. He has always had success against that cover 3 defense of Pete Carroll, so that would be my only counterpoint against Seattle here. But I completely agree. It's a bounce back situation for Seattle. Russell Wilson should have success, even if Jalen Ramsey is able to shut down either Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. The other guy should be wide open all game. And the Rams offense started very well into the season. They were like second or third in DVOA after week 3. But since then, they really fell off a cliff. I think since week 4, they ranked 28th in EPA per dropback. So that offense has really taken a step back, and it probably won't be enough to beat Seattle in this spot, even though they're coming off a bye.
But you know what, Suma? I was actually looking back to this last year as well. So the bye week in general, we can talk about, but it doesn't have the same significance that it used to in the NFL, especially after the NFL changed the rules and teams couldn't practice for 2 weeks. And then, listen, it's very small sample sizes, but I looked right immediately back to the Rams off the bye last year. They lost to Mason Rudolph.
I forgot about that. Oh, that was such a bad game.
Great. It's not the Seahawks defense, but they lost to Mason Rudolph. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's someone sorry. I forgot. Yeah, he's still in the league, isn't he? He had a couple of snaps last week too. Great stuff. Fantastic stuff. Good on him. Okay, let's move ahead, guys. I think we've a strong enough consensus there on Seattle enough to lock them in the money line. Let's look at the next game. This is, for many people, their game of the week. Do we ever think that a Buffalo Bills Arizona Cardinals would be the game of the week? But here we are. 2.19. You can back the Bills. Arizona, they're just under 1.8 on the money line. Bills getting a 2-point start at 1.98. The total is a rather large one at 56.5. This opened at 49 for about 30 seconds, I would suggest, Rob Pizolla, and got absolutely hammered up by a full touchdown. Rob, what are you making in this one?
Yeah, so I haven't bet this game. I have considered at different points in the week either betting the Bills or actually the over. The number was a little bit lower when I was considering the over as well here, but I just don't see a whole lot of stops. I love the Bills' offense. I do think there's a good opportunity for them to duplicate the success that they had last week. For starters, we're going to have to see how the Arizona cornerback situation plays out because they had some personnel issues last week in the secondary, and Tua went off in that game, obviously. I like that Buffalo welcomed John Brown back last week, who is a very underrated wide receiver in this league and does so much to stretch the field for that offense. He's really a crucial part of that offense. And then, someone made a really good point that I guess I kind of glossed over last week, but the Bills had that period where they really struggled offensively, and people were wondering, is this the same offense? But a lot of those had to do with inclement weather in those games. I mean, you look at the game against Tennessee, home to Kansas City, the game against New England, those aren't exactly optimal weather conditions for them. And if we remove those games, this is a top 5 offense in the league this season. So with a very good offensive coordinator. So I think that they're going to score. The problem is that I don't necessarily trust their defense right now. And yes, they forced Russell Wilson into 4 turnovers last week. But that just hasn't been the norm for them this year. They're 23rd in EPA per play on defense. They give up a successful play over 50% of the time. It's the second worst mark in the entire league. And that's the challenge for me. I'd love to bet Buffalo again. I do think that they're better than Arizona, but I really struggle to see the defense getting stopped, especially if Matt Milano is out again. I mean, I can just see Kyler Murray doing whatever he wants with his legs without having that skilled linebacking core for Buffalo. So I do make the game closer to a pick'em. I could make an argument for Buffalo here. It ultimately probably doesn't make my card, but that's the way I'm leaning.
All right, Suma, what do you think on it? Rob's leaning almost Buffalo, but not getting there right now. What are you thinking?
Yeah, same here. If you forced me to make 2 bets on that game, it would be Buffalo and the over. but not a strong enough edge for me to take anything. I think that Kyler Murray is a special player, but a lot of efficiency is coming on the ground. And I just think that he is the best runner in terms of EPA this season, even before Dalvin Cook. So he's really adding lots of value on the ground, but the passing efficiency hasn't really been that great. They haven't been really consistent. A couple of big plays here and there, but I think this Bills offense getting some offensive linemen back, center Mitch Morse should be back, John Brown is back, Stephon Diggs is on fire. I think the passing attack and combined with Josh Allen's ability to get something done on the ground might be a little bit too much for the Cards, but as Rob mentioned, that Bills defense is not really good. They are terrible against the run. I can really see Chase Edmonds and Kyler Murray putting together some really good drives on the ground. So it's really a coin flip game to me. And if you force me to make a pick, I would lean Buffalo.
Kyler Murray's got more rushing yards than Alvin Kamara, James Conner, and Aaron Jones. But Drew, the Cardinals, you really want to sell this team, but you want to sell them this week.
Honestly, I feel like I got a little lucky with my underdog pick last week of the Miami Dolphins. I don't know that they should have won that game necessarily. The Cardinals coming off of their bye gave you basically an A performance offensively last week. And really, 1 week ago, I was on here slandering Cliff Kingsbury, talking about how it was going to be so fun to fade him all year next year. And he came out of the bye, and I thought that
such a huge winning week for Drew last week, but can't afford to upgrade for the internet connection.
Can you guys hear me?
Well, I can, yeah. Good.
Oh, okay.
He's just teasing.
Oh, okay. The Cliff Kingsbury experience, was going poorly. I thought the offense was not well sequenced, not well schemed through a lot of the first half of the season, but it was excellent last week. And they really did a great job, especially putting passing pressure on what I consider to be a very strong passing defense for the Miami Dolphins. And if they roll out the same sort of aggressive approach against this Buffalo Bills defense, number one, they have speed, and speed has shown to absolutely crush Buffalo so far this season. Buffalo cannot match speed with speed. I think Arizona's for sure going to put some points, put some scoreboard pressure on here. And similarly, Josh Allen now, in a controlled environment without the weather, as Rob mentioned, absolutely he's a much better player. And he is, he's much, his efficiency, his accuracy that we saw through the first 4 weeks of the season wasn't a mirage when conditions are good. And a lot of it is helped, obviously, because they have the two dynamic wide receivers that can get open down the field, and Diggs and John Brown. And yeah, with fully healthy unit, these guys are going to score too. I was in early on this over. I'm in at 52.
What you got?
I got 52,
okay.
And it was kind of a head scratcher to see it open as low as it did. I'm not exactly sure what the thinking was there. And I think Andy and I talked about this on Sunday, and we were like, well, what do you make fair price? And I think we both said 56, and now here it is at 56.5. So I can't really say that there's a good bet to be made on the over at this point. But I also don't know how either of these teams is really stopping each other in the red zone. Honestly, Kenyon Drake out and Chase Edmonds in has been an upgrade for the last couple of weeks. And as Suma mentioned, Kyler Murray's ability to kind of utilize his legs, which is something we didn't see a lot from him last year, that he's integrating into his game now, has been extremely difficult for teams to stop. So this is going to be a shootout. And I would also lean Buffalo, but not by enough to fire on that money line.
Well, Rob Pizolla, what would you, if you had to do it over again, if you got a kind of a number of 54, 55, would you play the over in that, Rob?
Yeah, I probably would. I just waited too long earlier in the week. And honestly, typically totals haven't been moving early in the week. So I've been afforded the ability to wait till later on. But on Monday, a bunch of them got bet mainly to the over. And if I could go back in time, I would have bet the over on Monday morning. Yeah.
It's an exceptionally big number. But look, there are times you look at these big numbers and you could be scared away, but invariably, if you look at these high 50s, they more often than not actually go over historically. So one to be aware of. Okay, I don't think we have anything there, but let's move on to Bengals and Steelers. Now, at the time of recording, this game is off the board at Matchbook and quite a few sports books, but general line we had was -9, and we had -9, and I think it was up about the 49.50 for the total. We normally do a WhatsApp group on Tuesday ahead of these recordings on Wednesday, and by the time I had literally changed the title on our WhatsApp group, Suma, straight in there, Bengals, you want Bengals on the top dog, spoiler alert. Why the Bengals here though, Suma, getting +8.5, +9?
There are a couple of reasons for it. So the Steelers are 8-0, but their underlying statistical efficiency metrics and the eye test doesn't really fit what I personally would expect from an unbeaten team or from maybe one of the best teams in the league, so to speak. And if you look at the Steelers, they basically are an average offense. They are like 15th in DVOA, I think 14th in EPA per play, lots of short passes. The run game is not really working that well. Their defense has been playing well so far in the season, but they have also played somewhat of a light schedule. Their secondary is vulnerable, and as soon as their pass rush doesn't get home, it makes it really tough for the defense to shut down opposing quarterbacks. And the Bengals are coming out of their bye week. They are 6-1-1 against the spread this year because Joe Burrow is really, really good. They just had one single game against the Ravens where they didn't stand any chance. And now the Steelers are entering the week with Ben Roethlisberger banged up with his both knees. He had an MCL sprain in one knee, and I've read that the other knee was also banged up. So we are getting Joe Burrow out of the bye week. He's going to get some offensive line help back, and they are playing a Steelers team that it's probably overvalued to this point with a quarterback that is banged up. I wouldn't be surprised if Mason Rudolph starts this week because they might just say, oh, we are 8-0 and why should we put out Big Ben there? But I think he's going to play through that knee injury. But I think Joe Burrow is going to have success against that defense. AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, they should really have some success against that secondary. And Joe Burrow has shown us a unique ability to escape from condensed pockets, from exploding pockets. And if you combine all that, I didn't really get to that opening number early in the week. I think I've bet +8 for the Bengals, but I was much closer to 6.5 with Big Ben playing, and now it's off the board. I expect him to play, but I really think that the Bengals are going to be in this game. It's going to be a wire-to-wire game. Steelers won't really score tons of points in this one, in my opinion, and I really think that the Bengals are a live dog in this one.
And hey, if Garrett Gilbert had success against that Steelers secondary, you would think that Joe Burrow would be able to do something similar. Drew Dinsick in agreement with Suma here.
Let's not forget Garrett Gilbert was all-time AF Apollo, Orlando Apollo.
Alliance. Was it Alliance Football League or something? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean he was all pro. In seriousness, though, yes, Pittsburgh's defense has been overrated now for a while. I don't think you can take this statistical profile that you have from them over the first half of the season, project it over the second half, and expect them to replicate that. Cincinnati, the youth movement is exciting. A lot of talented young offensive players emerging. And if Joe Burrow can avoid the pressure and doesn't get sacked 9 times in this game, they're going to score 21 points. They're going to put some pressure on Pittsburgh. I agree that I like the Bengals with the points in this one. But realistically, the what's going on with the kind of the COVID explosion in both Cincinnati and Pittsburgh is concerning. I think the entire secondary for Cincinnati got sent home effectively today. Obviously, Roethlisberger and a handful of the offensive players were exposed to Vance McDonald on Sunday. They're all in the protocol. Who exactly is available in this one is going to be, it's kind of up in the air. And
can I just ask you
sure.
on that, just from a general specific theme, right? You know, we've always kind of alluded to, you know, getting the early line, but is that kind of change, you know, with COVID stuff, Drew? That, like, you know, don't get me wrong, certain things with the total, like you got like a full touchdown there with Arizona is fine, but like with sides, it's a tricky one right now.
I don't mind taking the points though.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but laying big numbers.
Laying a big number. You better have a very confident position that all your guys are going to show up. But in this particular spot, and you know, again, I don't love the idea of, you know, half of the secondary for the Bengals not showing up on Sunday. That's going to be tough against a team that has, you know, some pretty dynamic wideouts. But still, you know, realistically, I would expect this to open up around 7.5 when it comes back up if Ben is playing. And at that point, I do still see a small bit of value on this. I agree with Suma that the fair price here should be about 6.5. You know, realistically, this coming in right around a touchdown as my most likely final score is where it's at. So if I can get over, if you can find over 7.5 points on the reopen here, I think that's still worth the play.
Yeah, it was 9 prior to being taken off the board. Rob Pizolla, what do you think with this one? Again, a hell of a lot of unknowns with COVID protocols and whatnot. But you know, apples being apples. If we have everyone going, is there still a bit of value taking the Bengals?
I mean, I would be more likely to take Cincinnati than Pittsburgh now, especially with the uncertainty around Big Ben going into this week. The Bengals were a team that I was definitely going to be keeping my eye on for the second half of the season. So it kind of went unnoticed before their bye week, but they got William Jackson and Mackenzie Alexander back at corner, and they were suffering in their secondary. They got Mike Daniels back on their defensive line. This, I believe, would be the first week of the season where Mike Daniels and Geno Atkins are playing together on the defensive line. As Suma mentioned, they were without their entire offensive line. Their 5 week 1 starters did not play for them prior to the bye week. So there's a lot to like about Cincinnati going forward. It's good quarterback with a team that is going to be getting a lot of pieces back from injury. They're still a step away. The challenge for me is that I'm not really in love with the number. I think Pittsburgh's narrow win last week cost us a little bit of value in this game. I was really hoping Pittsburgh would just beat the Cowboys by 30 points. You could get something like Cincinnati +10, +10.5. And granted, there's not a huge difference between 7 and 10 anymore. There's a lot of dead numbers in there. But I likely won't have it on my card. If you ask me to pick the side, I would take the Bengals at anything a 7 or above, but I wouldn't feel supremely confident in that.
All right. Lots of if, buts, and maybes there. Maybe want to kind of watch during the week, see how this market runs. Let's have a look at the Bucs and the Panthers. So all those games that we just covered there are in the 9:25 slot here in Ireland and the UK. And look, the great thing is there's nothing else on Sunday night, so it's good to have 6 games. And then, like, you know, there's something called as Masters that's on, so I don't think anyone's going to be watching that. The NFL, and then some other weeks we get like times where there's like 2 crap games, 1 good game and 1 crap game. You're like, how can't they get this right? It's so frustrating. Anyway, we could go on about that for a while. Let's have a look at the betting for the Bucs and the Panthers currently at the time of recording at Matchbook. The Bucs, red hot favorite on the money line at just under 1.45. The Panthers at 3.04. Panthers getting a 5-point start, and you can back that at 1 point, just under 1.97. 50.5 is the total. Who's strongest here, guys? Who wants to go first?
Rob looked like he had something to say about the Masters. Who's your pick for the Masters?
Well, no, for the Masters, I got this wrong as well, so you can blame me as much as anyone else. But because of daylight savings and the way it works this year and the sunlight, they're actually going to be finishing the final round early. So it'll be done, and that's the 6 late games this year. So I'm used to the NFL getting it all wrong, and I completely jumped on that right away, and I should have looked into it a little bit more. But we will be luckily having probably a Masters champion into the 6 late NFL games this week. In terms of this game, I kind of like a couple things in this game. I'm not sure what I like more, but I like the Bucs and I like the over. So the Bucs ran into a buzzsaw on Sunday night. I mean, I watched I wasn't on with you guys last week. I watched you guys, but I echoed a lot of the things that you guys were saying about the Saints. And the Saints, to me, are a very underrated team because of the penalty yardage that they've had this year on defense. I think that really plays into them, into why they've struggled. But ultimately, I think what you saw on Sunday night was the Bucs play at probably the absolute bottom end of their range. and the Saints play at the absolute top end of their range, and you put that together and you just get this crazy performance. But the Saints defense versus the Panthers defense is very different. So, I mean, the Saints in terms of EPA per play, they're right around league average, but they're 7th in DVOA. The Panthers, on the other side of things, they're 26th in DVOA. They're 25th in EPA per play. They have a 4.5% adjusted sack rate, which is 2% lower than the rest of the league. You look at what the Saints were doing well last week. They have a very good defensive line. They were getting in Brady's face. With the exception of Brian Burns on the Panthers defensive line, they don't really have a whole lot going on there, and they really struggle to get after the quarterback. Derek Brown has been a disappointment so far. Bravion Roy, who they drafted as well, has been a disappointment at defensive tackle. You want to disrupt Tom Brady, put pressure up the middle, you're going to disrupt Tom Brady. That's been the way to do it his entire career. And I just don't think the Panthers are capable. So I think Tampa Bay is going to score. And I'm not a huge trends guy in general. Really, you never see me reference trends. But I think there are some logical ones that apply. And Tom Brady is 44-21 against the spread in his career after a loss. That's a 68% win rate. What tends to happen with these elite quarterbacks is they lose a game and people just try to come up with these reasonings for this team being done in general. Like, this team's finished. The Bucs are frauds. How many times have you heard the Bucs are frauds this week, or they can't win the NFC anymore?
Yeah.
And we tend to overreact at these extreme levels. And personally, I like the money for drawing for Carolina early in the week. I just don't understand it. I think Tampa Bay is just so much more of a well-rounded football team than the Panthers. And I get that the Panthers went into Arrowhead last week. They played a great game. They had a chance to upset the Chiefs. But we're not looking at one-game samples in the NFL, right? We have to evaluate what we've seen as a whole through 9 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think we lost Rob there. He's got it. Yeah, we got you back there, Rob. So I'm just going to move on to Drew for a second. Just pick up on what Rob said there. What are you thinking here? I can see you nodding away, Drew. So
that was a very well laid out handicap. I agree pretty much across all major aspects there. I noticed Ali Marpet was back practicing today, and it's crazy that a guard in today's NFL could be so important. But sure enough. Ali Marpet, potentially, he's an all-pro, maybe, I'm not going to say, future 10-year starter probably in this league. And his absence was felt. I mean, the Saints were getting early pressure in the middle that completely disrupted the entire, flow of the Tampa Bay offense. And Rob's right. There's nothing in this Panthers defensive line that suggests that they're going to be able to replicate that. There's nothing at the Panthers defense in general that suggests they're going to be able to get off the field. This is a nice bounce back spot for Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. I don't mind laying the points in this one at all. And I'm old enough to remember this feels like deja vu all over again. Week 1, Tampa gets embarrassed by the Saints. And I remember someone who I respect their handicap, incredibly respectful handicap, was like beating the drum. Tampa Bay is going to bounce back next week. This is the play of the week. Absolutely no doubter. And, you look at that box score, they should have beaten them by like 25. I mean, it was not a close game. The Carolina was lucky to be in that one. Most of their points came in the second half after Tampa Bay kind of let their, kind of relax a little bit. So, and if you don't remember week 2, I'm talking about Suma, who was beating the drum for Tampa Bay being the play of that week. But yeah, this sets up exactly the same. Tampa Bay gets some revenge, rights the ship and thumps the Panthers.
Good memory on you. I was thinking about that. I said, who was that? Suma. Come on, you're going to roll in with the other guys here? Bucs -5? Come on, get there. Come on.
I like the Bucs more than I like the Panthers, but I have played the over early in the week. I think I got 49 and a half. I think it's up to 50 and a half. I still like it.
Yeah.
I like everything. Yeah, I like everything below 51. The Panthers defense is not good by any means. The Falcons scored, I think, 27 or 25 points after shitting their pants in the red zone several times. They could have scored 31 or more easily. The Saints put up 27 points against them without Michael Thomas, without Emmanuel Sanders. The Chiefs were doing some funky stuff in the red zone because they were probably bored and easily put up 32 points. So this is a smash spot for the Buccaneers offense. Bounce back by all means. I'm full on the Bucs train, on the offensive Bucs train this week. But on the other side, I think that Panthers offense is also going to put up some points. Since week 5, they rank 6th in EPA per play, 8th in EPA per dropback. I think Joe Brady is absolutely cooking, and the Bucs defense is extremely aggressive. And we have seen a tendency where they bite on a lot of underneath routes and get exposed on deeper routes. And the Panthers got Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel, who can really run these deep routes like slant and go, some double moves on the outside. And I think that Joe Brady is going to come up with some aggressive downfield passing here because they know that they gotta score points to keep up with Tom Brady and that offense. So I really like the over here. I think 31-24, 34-24, something like that should be a score in that matchup.
Yeah, and we all went 50.5 currently available at Matchbook at 2.0 even money or plus 100 on the US odds. Okay, 2 good looks there, I think. Before we move on to our ladder section, so here's what I've got from those 4 games. I think Seattle money line, Bucs -5, and let's pay over 50.5 at even money currently at Matchbook. There's 3 locked in there. Drew, I'm going to let you do my job for a second. I think you wanted to get the thoughts of Rob and Suma on a certain game. So you can host for a couple of minutes, mate. All yours. Sit back.
I guess really what I'm curious about is if you guys think that right now is the buy low spot for the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens are going into Gillette on Sunday Night Football. They're 7.5 point favorites across the board right now against the Patriots team whose defense is like amazingly bad. Would never have expected Bill Belichick to have like the 31st ranked defense in the NFL, but here we are. And obviously the loss of Ronnie Stanley, the retirement of Marshall Yanda, the overall kind of step backwards that Lamar Jackson has looked like he has taken this season is concerning. But the Ravens, I think they cover this week. I think they, I don't think really the Patriots, who struggle to stop the run, I cannot see a reasonable way that Baltimore doesn't get theirs in this game. And the Baltimore defense is playing extremely well. And I know you don't necessarily want to base a handicap on how good a defense is. But for sure, this defense there's no good defenses in the NFL except for Baltimore, in my opinion. And so to the degree that they may make some noise still in the AFC, I wonder if this is the buy low spot on them for the AFC, because they're playing in primetime this week. They got Tennessee next week. They're playing in primetime on Thanksgiving against the Steelers. They got a primetime game against the Browns after the Cowboys after that, and the Browns after that. So like 4 of the next 5 weeks, they're going to be on TV. Everybody's going to see them. If they kind of grow and show any of the offense that we saw from this team in the regular season last year, I think this might be the last chance you can really buy low on these guys. And I'm curious if I'm looking past anything with the Patriots. Like, does Bill Belichick have an ace up his sleeve? Are they going to get back into the race? And because I didn't know what to make of that performance against the Jets on Monday night. I thought the Jets were the right side going into it. I didn't have the stomach to back them. And the Patriots were lucky to get that win. But this is a team that I can't really put my finger on what the Patriots are right now.
Rob, your thoughts?
Well, I think Baltimore is a contender. I don't. Like, we're going, what is this, week 10 in the NFL? I'm horrible. Yeah, we're in week 10 of the NFL. You'd be hard-pressed to find a team that just will turn around one side of the ball, like, halfway through the season. It rarely happens. So I think in large part what we're seeing from the Baltimore offense now is the expectation of what we can see from them going forwards. Maybe slight improvement, but I don't think they're going to get back to where they were last year. I think largely some other teams have been able to figure out how to defend them a little bit more in the offseason, and that's been something that they'll have to change going forward. The defense is very much for real. They're missing their number 1 corner last week against the Colts. Colts couldn't really generate much, although I guess you can argue that a fumble changed that game in favor of the Ravens. But looking at this game specifically, like, I just don't see where New England has an advantage on either side of the ball. I mean, even if the Ravens offense is merely average, like, we just watched the corpse of Joe Flacco go up and down the field against the Patriots defense, right? Like, this looked like Flacco in the Super Bowl run for let's say 58 minutes of the game before the game blew it towards the end there. But I don't know. This is going to be like one of those shaping up to be a huge liability, I would imagine, for sportsbooks, because no one's going to want to bet New England in this game. That doesn't really play into my handicap at all. I like the Ravens in this spot. I think it's a short price. In terms of whether it's the buy low spot, I think last week was probably the buy low spot, because we are seeing a line that's been inflated versus what it was earlier in the week. This would have been probably a 6.5, maybe a 6, had we not seen the Patriots and the Ravens games last week. But I think the Ravens are a contender. I do. I just don't think we're going to see them get to that offensive efficiency that they had a year ago.
Suma, what do you think about this one? The current line of match, but just for those wondering, is the Ravens -7 at 1.96.
I also think that the Ravens have the matchup advantage on both sides of the ball. They're getting Marlon Humphrey back, and the Pats probably have the worst receiving corps in the entire league. So if they put their cornerbacks in man coverage on those guys, there's nothing where Cam Newton can go with the football through the air, in my opinion. That front seven of the Patriots should get exposed on the ground. So I completely agree there. I think long term, they are also a contender in the AFC, but I'm still concerned about their passing attack. And I just rewatched the Colts-Ravens game today, and there were some situations where that problem really got obvious, in my opinion. Just one situation, it was 3rd and 4, I guess. Marquise Brown was running a speed out on the outside. I think Xavier Rhodes was backed off 3 to 5 yards, and Marquise Brown had 3 yards or 4 of separation. It was an easy first down, but Lamar Jackson, for whatever reason, from a clean pocket, couldn't get the ball there. He just underthrew Marquise Brown on a simple speed out. And these are some situations that you see regularly with that offense. And I'm really concerned come playoff time, if they play some of the juggernauts in the AFC, that they really might get exposed on that side of the ball. But like the other guys said, their defense is for real. The defense can keep them in basically every game that's not against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yeah, they can still go pretty far this season. But if they play the Chiefs, right now I would probably make that line, I don't know, Chiefs -4 or something.
6 maybe, yeah. It probably would be in Kansas City if they play them in the playoffs, because I don't think I struggle to see how the Ravens hopscotch the Steelers to get the home playoff game, which is tough. But I just worry if in primetime, if they beat the Patriots 42-7 or something, if we ever see 5-1 for them to win the AFC again, because I honestly, I look across the AFC, you have the Chiefs and a lot of other teams that are fatally flawed. And the Ravens, I think they were using a lot of the first half of the season to kind of figure some things out, relying on their defense more, trying some things on offense. And they may be saving the good running plays for the playoffs, for all I can tell you. So I still think that I don't know. I still think they potentially are going to be part players when it comes to the end of the season here in the AFC, especially. I just I don't want to miss my buy low spot on them in the futures market, which I think might be now.
Yeah, I think we want to add the Ravens -7. I don't know, Drew, I'm kind of getting the sense that it might be your best bet. Don't tell me that, no, but I'm just going to put it on the docket here for the time being and add that as our 4th play. Guys, just before we move on to the latter section with top dogs and best bets, anything from elsewhere jumped out at you, Drew? You're normally a good enough guy to get down early in the week. Anything else?
I played the over in the Raiders game. I don't know why they keep making these so low. The propensity for Denver to score garbage time points, I think, only helps the situation here. So that's a nice over spot. I went back to the well on the Eagles against the Giants. I may end up looking stupid having any confidence in Doug Peterson and the Eagles this season, but they're just so much better a team than the Giants. And the Giants, honestly, the Eagles defense, I think, can reasonably affect. They may be able to pitch a shutout. Daniel Jones and this Giants offense is putrid, and the Eagles are getting healthier. I think they're going to be able to dictate this game with their defense, and I don't mind having laying the short price with the road favorite. And I feel like the Eagles owe me from that Thursday night game. So
yeah.
this is a little bit of an emotional bet, maybe. So don't necessarily, I may be clouded a little bit on this, but I did play the Eagles. I played the Ravens, although it's not my best bet. I do like that spot.
All right, Rob, did you want to add into Drew? I know you were nodding your head on that Raiders over.
Raiders over, to me, like it's almost like an auto bet every week right now with the way that those. And honestly, it's dumb. Like I never say that. I can't believe I'm saying it's an auto bet, but they keep coming out at these 50 and a half right now is basically a league average score right now in the NFL. We're talking about 51 points per game in the NFL this year, and you can get right around that price on a Las Vegas Raiders. Great offense, horrible defense over. So to me, that's a no-brainer. One that stands out to me, I don't know if anyone else is going to talk about it today, but the Browns against the Texans, to me, the Browns are a team that kind of went into their bye pretty beat up as well. They come out of it. I'm not impressed with the Texans. They could have lost to Jacksonville last week. In fact, I think their only 2 wins this year are against Jacksonville. So to me, that's a short price. Could have easily been around 4.5 there.
I could be wrong, but I thought that was actually off the board earlier. No, it's back on. So apologies. I think it was off momentarily. Yeah,
because of the Baker Mayfield status, but it seems like he's been cleared to play in that game. So they were honestly, if Case Keenum was starting at quarterback for the Browns, I might even lay 2.5 or 3 with them this week.
Yeah. The difference between Mayfield and Keenum may be a half point. The much more important status for that game, in my opinion, is Wyatt Teller. Is he available? Nick Chubb, is he available? They put away that because the Texans can't stop the run anyway.
Exactly.
Drew, can I ask what number did you get on that Raiders Broncos total?
50 and a half.
That's what we got now.
I honestly, I make it 56. I make it 56.
All right.
So
all right, that is officially bet number 5 for us. Vegas over 50.5. So, anything to add to what the other gentleman said? I presume you're in agreement with that Vegas total, especially. You were on the Vegas and Chargers total last week. Another easy winner.
I'm also on that Vegas Broncos total this week at 51, I guess.
50.5.
Okay, I just checked it out. If we exclude the really bad weather game for the Raiders at Cleveland, where we had 28 to 30 miles per hour of wind and rain and snow and whatever, which is not really predictive going forward for any dome games, the average scoring total in Raiders games this year has been 60.7. And we were getting 51 early in the week. So even though it's Drew Lock, and I don't think Drew Lock is going to be the future of the Broncos, they're going to play against an abysmal Raiders defense, and they should be able to score 24 points in this one.
It's all about the spot. It's all about who he's playing. It's not even about what's gone down the line with Drew Lock. I think he can sling it. I don't know. He's a funny one. I haven't made my mind up there yet. Right, gentlemen, I think we've a lot there. Okay, but let's move on to top dogs. We're back in our 2 out of 3 streak last week. Drew Dinsick, you went the Miami Dolphins money line. I took the New York Football Giants. Suma, who'd you have? You took the Colts, right?
I think I took the Colts, yeah.
All right, okay. Redeem yourself. Who's going to be the big dog this week?
I'm going with the Bengals. Probably a very bold dog, but there's some hope that Big Ben is not going to play, so that top dog could be looking really good on Sunday. But I think this is a very bad spot for the Steelers with Big Ben banked up. So going with the Bengals here.
Yeah, just for the interest of clarity here, we locked this in pre-recording when it was on the board, and it was 3.25 on the money line at Matchbook. Now, again, if Big Ben doesn't go, he doesn't go. That we can't do much about that. But we're going to suggest that it's going to be at least 3.0 anyway, 2-1. Drew Dinsick, your top dog this week, man.
I'm going with the grossest dog on the board, probably, which is the Chicago Bears. This is a good spot for them. Minnesota has come off of 2 comfortable wins in division. The market has upgraded them substantially twice now, and this is now flipped across where A week ago, we would have looked and seen the Bears as 2.5-point favorites, and lo and behold, it's now pushing out to Minnesota as 3-point favorites on the road. Minnesota struggles in Chicago for whatever reason. Their offense is crushing right now via the run. They're going up against the Bears defense that defends the run well. And Soldier Field with the long grass and the cold weather and the wind, like this just sets up well. This is a Bears weather kind of game. And I think reasonably the Bears can win this one if they get to 16 points. So yeah. I think this is going to be an ugly, low-scoring game. And just on the basis of the weather and the how quickly the market has flipped on these two teams, I think you can get a little bit of line value here back in the Bears.
A lot of love for Minnesota this week. A lot of love. A lot of recency bias going on there. Rob Pizolla, top dog of week 10.
I'm going to take the Chargers against the Dolphins. If I exported the Chargers and Dolphins efficiency stats into a spreadsheet for you, and I removed the names and the records of the two teams, I would be hard-pressed if 50% of the NFL fans can tell me which is which team. They are very near identicals. But Miami is looking good recently, obviously, with back-to-back wins since Tua has come under the reins for them, whereas the Chargers continue to find a way to blow games, which has been their MO for many years now, and I don't have much confidence in Anthony Lynn. But what I do have confidence in is that this game is probably coming down to the wire, and you're getting a decent underdog price on the Chargers. So in a game which I virtually see as a coin flip between two teams that are very equal outside of their records, I think there's just some decent value in betting the Chargers this week.
Justin Herbert against Tua. Can you remember that, Drew? We got those ones wrong at the draft podcast. We got them the wrong way around. It was a tough one.
Yep.
Both great quarterbacks. Yep. Herbert's really good. I mean, if Miami had drafted him, you wouldn't exactly say that was a bad pick. He's really good. He's a lot better than we thought he was going to be. I'm just going to get one question in here. Sorry, Drew, go. Sorry.
I was just going to say a lot of Herbert's a lot of impressive, a lot of his success is born out of the weapons that he has in the passing game are awesome. Keenan Allen is awesome. Mike Williams can create separation down the sidelines. Herbert can hit him. Like he's got something to work with, and that matters so much in the NFL, and people often look past it. But Herbert is going to be able to continue to grow, and I just don't know what you do. You got to move on coaching wise. I mean, the only explanation because I agree with Rob. Actually, I would even say I can tell you which is which because I have efficiency stats for Chargers. I have them rated higher than the Dolphins, yet they're here 2-6. The fact that you can underperform to that level, even as being this efficient, is an indictment of your coaching. So I think you got to move on.
Yeah, they've lost a lot of close games there for sure. Just one thing there. Sorry, some of you had a question or you want to come back in on that?
I thought about this one, and I think it really shows how the market has a little bit evolved and values passing efficiency maybe more than like a couple of years ago. I think 3 years ago, this line would have opened 3.5, 4 maybe, because we're getting a 2-6 team versus a 5-3 team, etc., etc. But this one just opened 2.5, which was much closer to where I would have made it. And I just thought that maybe the market has really evolved and values passing efficiency quite a bit more than it has been like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
All right. Just if that line comes back about the Bengals 3.0, I think that treble pays about 12-1 at Matchbook at the time of recording. Again, a small bit of ifs, buts, and maybes, but we want to be just kind of clarify our position on that. Very quickly, guys, before we go to best bets, got one question here. We have a lot of comments in. Thanks for getting in touch, guys. Very much appreciated. But probably one of the pick of the ones here is a question from Patrick Rinn on YouTube. Any thoughts on Giants 11-1 or 12.0 to win the NFC East? Schuma's shaking his head. Rob is shaking his head. They're horrible, but so is the whole division, and their remaining schedule is slightly better than Philly.
How many more games do they get against the Washington football team?
None. 0.
None? Oh, then they're not going to win any more games.
No. Nicely done.
Oh, so no, I honestly, it's. I guess if I want to say something nice about the Giants, Joe Judge has exceeded my expectations.
Jesse May is listening.
Yeah, Joe Judge has exceeded my expectations. He has gotten this team. This is one of the most talent poor teams in the NFL because they have a GM that doesn't know how to draft appropriately, and yet Joe Judge has got these guys playing extremely hard. A lot of teams, when you're this talent poor and you know you don't have a chance on any given week, it's tough to get those guys motivated and go out there and put their bodies on the line and risk their health and their well-being, knowing that they're probably going to lose. But Joe Judge has got buy-in from these guys to the degree that they're competing in games. They're going to cover big spreads probably just with some of the garbage time points that Danny Dimes can just deliver for you. I don't like them this week because I think this game is so high leverage for Philadelphia that they can't really, you're not going to get the same kind of sloppy the looking past this game for Philadelphia. So I don't love the Giants this week, but they will be a team worth backing if you can get some big spreads on them later this season.
Yeah, okay. I think we covered it there, guys. Let's move on. Week 10, best bets. Drew Dinsick, Miami plus 4.5 puts you in the clubhouse. With that victory, kick us off this week. Where's your best bet coming from?
I'm going to go with one we talked off the top, Seattle Seahawks money line. This is a nice spot. I think realistically, when we get to the next time that these two teams play, I think we'll have a good laugh that Seattle was an underdog in this game.
Okay, I like that. Rob Pizolla, best bet?
I didn't mention it when Drew brought it up in his any other bets, but I'm going to take the Eagles as my best bet this week. I just do not like the Giants at all. And this is someone who bet the Giants last week and will readily admit that maybe got like a +5 turnover margin against the Washington football team, and the game still comes down to the wire. The Giants are a bad football team, and the Eagles are going to get some offensive weapons back this week. Offensive line help. I like their defensive line against the Giants' offensive line. This seems to me like a very get-right game for the Eagles, so to speak. So whether it's -3 at juice -3 or -3.5 at plus money, regardless, I think that's a short price.
Regardless, yeah, 2.05 Eagles -3.5 doesn't make any difference. They're gonna cover. Suma.
Since the Bengals are off the board, I'm going with the Bucs and Panthers over 50.5.
Oh, you can take it's probably better. We probably don't know enough about the Bengals. Okay, over 50.5. So in Bucs and Panthers, I like it. Nice one, Sue. Nice one. Okay, yeah. And it's weird. We kind of thought that line would go up early in the week, but it just didn't, and it's kind of staying there, which is interesting in itself. Who knows? Maybe just not enough there.
Something about divisional games I've noticed. For some reason, people are reluctant to bet the overs there, and historically they've been a little bit lower scoring than non-divisional. But I like that play personally. I think the Bucs offense goes off this week.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. Okay, 6 bets in total. Let's do a very quick recap before we wrap up. Seattle money line is also Drew's best bet. Bucs -5 over 50.5, which is Suma's best bet as well in that game. The Bucs and Panthers. Baltimore -7. Vegas, Denver over 50.5. And to wrap it up, Rob Pizolla, Eagles -3.5, 2.05. Best bet. We are done. Gentlemen, thank you as ever. 6 good bets locked in for week 10. We're in double digits. Week 10. Mercy. Where does this year go? All right, guys. Thank you as ever. Thank you, Drew. Rob, thanks. Good to have you back on again. Suma, a pleasure as always. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for listening if you're on the podcast. We will chat to you again next week, next Wednesday to be exact. Best of luck with your bets. Have a good one.